ITW Soundworx. Welcome to another episode of ITW Soundworx. My name is Ashwin, and on today's episode, we're joined by Irish international cricketer Niall O'Brien. Niall was interviewed as part of ITW Primetime, an initiative by ITW Co. that showcases leading athletes, industry heads, and other influencers in the sporting business. Our interview with Niall covered a wide variety of subjects, including his upbringing as part of one of the country's most pre-eminent sporting families, his man of the match innings in one of Ireland's greatest ever triumphs, and his most memorable cricketing rivalries, featuring the likes of Warne. We joined the interview with Niall recounting the days of his childhood playing cricket in the backyard with his siblings.
I would just hit balls all day long, every day long, practice my catching, and we had a lot of heated games, let me tell you. There was no stone left unturned. The most important thing was to win. Me and my brothers and my sister had some fabulous battles. And I think actually those kind of tough encounters, you know, when you didn't give an inch, they set us up, set myself and Kevin for that matter, up for international cricket. Those really tough battles. It was a very, very pleasant childhood, I must say. I was blessed.
Yeah, Mum must have had a tough time being umpire after, with all the arguments spilling over to the dining table and all of that. It must have been quite a journey for her.
I'd say one thing about umpires, because I wasn't much of a walker back then, you know. So my brother, Kevin, obviously has a fantastic career as a batsman, but he was generally, as a youngster, Kevin was a bowler. So the general norm was for Kevin would bowl to me all day, and even if I nicked it and we had automatic keeper, I just stood my ground and scratched the ground as if to say I didn't touch it. And being the older brother, I had a bit more authority over Kevin, even though he's grown up to be a lot bigger than me and stronger and more menacing. But and then I would just come on, I'd pretend I'd bowl a little like Saurav Ganguly's little medium pace or something like that, and I'd nick Kevin off and he'd be out, and then he'd have to bowl to me again. So yeah, but you are right. The games are often halted for tea. Run in and eat your dinner as quick as you can and get back out before it gets dark.
So good 2-day, 3-day sessions between the O'Briens, and that must have been a fun time. But, you know, so talking about that, it's a great thing that you mentioned how this hardened you up and it sort of prepared you for what was to come in the world of cricket. But, you know, when you guys entered, so you made your professional debut in 2006 at a time when associate nations were sort of in tournaments seemingly to just make up the numbers. But you and your team, especially in the 2007 World Cup, really left an impression on the cricketing world, you know. So what was the prevailing mentality when you took on these more favoured teams, and how did you cope with these pressure? Because to be fair, I mean, all of you were international cricketers, you were highly accomplished in your own right, but you would sort of come into most games having to feel the pressure of the opposition. And how would you go about that? And in terms of how would you sort of advise people in non-sporting scenarios when they sort of come up against things that are seemingly impossible or seemingly bigger than what they're capable of achieving? So if you could just go a little bit into that mentality of how you guys approach these big tournaments and big games, considering the fact that, you know, associate nations hadn't reached the status that they have today as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. It's an interesting point, really, because I don't think we put any pressure on ourselves, actually. We felt like we've got nothing to lose. You know, when we flew to the Caribbean in 2007, nobody expected Ireland to probably win a game, let alone, you know, end up 7th in the tournament. So actually, you know, I think that played in our favour. We knew how good a team we were. You know, the other sides in that tournament didn't really know much about Ireland, and that worked in our favour. You know, myself, I was playing county cricket. Owen Morgan was playing county cricket. Everyone else pretty much was playing in Ireland and worked full time. You know, we had an opening bowler, Boyd Rankin, who was a farmer. You know, he was farming from 7 in the morning to 6 at night, doing his bowling, doing his practice. Then he's opening the bowling in the World Cup. So I think actually we kind of turned it on our heads. We just said, no, listen, we're here to enjoy ourselves. We trained so hard. You know, that was one thing about the Ireland team. You know, the coach at the time, Adrian Burrell, who was a wonderful coach, went on to work with South Africa and a number of other teams. He said, guys, listen, I'm going to be very open and honest. We're not going to be able to bat as well as India or as well as Australia. We're not going to be able to bowl as well as Pakistan or as well as South Africa. But one thing we can do, we can feel as well as them, and we can feel better. And I think that was a trademark you saw all through, you know, a 10, 12-year period with the Irish team. Everywhere they went, people said how good a fielding side they were, and that wasn't derogatory expression. That was a real kind of feather in Ireland's cap. So we knew we could field well, and we knew we had a good team. After that, it was about enjoyment. I certainly never felt like going into tournament, I'm really under pressure here. We need to beat Pakistan or we need to beat Bangladesh. I very, very rarely felt that. I always wanted to enjoy my cricket, embrace the opportunity. I love a challenge. I love playing against so-called better teams, if you want of a better expression. I loved it. I loved reveling, and I loved turning over these big sides. From a personal point of view, I love batting against the best. I love going out, taking my guard against, whether it be a Dale Steyn or Umar Gull or people like that in front of a big crowd. That really got me going. Got the juices inside me going. Probably one failing on my part when I came up against smaller opposition, if I can call that, other associate nations. I didn't do that well. I failed a lot against sides that people would expect me to kind of smash all around the ground, because maybe for some reason it just wasn't really that challenge, as opposed to playing against an Aussie or a Sri Lanka in a World Cup. So that's probably a mentality thing. I think I love the challenge. I love the opportunity. For other people and other teams, I think you got to trust what you do. I think you got to work your socks off first and foremost to be the best you can be. Whether you can be as good as whether it be tennis, whatever the sport might be, but you have to be the best you can be. You have to give 100% commitment and a love for the game, and want to be that person that wins the game for your side. Want to be that match winner. Cricket is a team sport, of course. We all know you can't win a game on your own, but actually it is quite an individual sport as well. And there's nothing better than being man of the match when your team have turned over a bigger or better opposition, because that gives you such a buzz. So I think for anyone, any team or any player that's kind of facing this kind of position in their career, embrace it. Don't shy away from it. Embrace the challenge and enjoy it and give it your absolute best. That's all you can do.
Oh, that's amazing advice, and coming from someone who actually did that, right? So I think the next, we segue now into, you just mentioned talking about a match-winning innings. You played probably the first famous innings in the history of your country, followed by your brother immediately after. But that's 72 against Pakistan, and you also had 100 against New Zealand. You had so many great individual performances. So my question is, cricket is such an unforgiving sport. You can be on top of the world on one day, and then the next day you don't do particularly well, and you're sort of brought straight back into ground. How do you keep your mentality flat, and how do you keep yourself grounded after having accomplished so much, being the first person in your country to do the things that you did?
Yeah, it's very difficult, actually, to be brutally honest with you. It's something I struggle with all through my career. The ups and downs, because I'm a very emotive person. I'm a very energetic person. I give absolutely everything to whatever I do, whether it be something as mundane as like cutting my grass in the garden. Everything for me is 100%. So when I went through good times and bad times, I found it very difficult to stay level, especially early on in my career, to be brutally honest with you. So if I had failings, if I had low scores, I got very down. I used to stay in my hotel room, and well, I'm not ashamed to say I'd often, be brought to tears after a bad performance or two, and at the same time, when I played really well, I was almost too high sometimes. So my kind of emotion was too much the other way. So that was something I learned with experience, and I think that's something that comes with highs and lows and good times and bad times. So I think, leading into that Pakistan game you mentioned, I was probably batting the worst I've ever batted in my career. That is, hand on heart, I was playing very, very poorly. I had a very poor tour to Kenya before that. I had food poisoning, didn't get any runs. I got 2, I think, against Zimbabwe 2 days previously. And the day before the Pakistan game, I didn't even have a batted net. So I said to my coach, listen, I'm batting that badly. I feel that much out of nick, out of form, out of rhythm. I don't want to bat in the nets because I'm just going to get frustrated. I'm going to get angry. I'm going to beat myself up. So I didn't bat. I just did my wicket keeping. And there's a picture somewhere you'll be able to find on the internet, people listening or watching. There's a picture of me standing in the middle of Sabina Park with my baggy hat on, no shirt on because it was nice and warm, my bat and my gloves, and I'm shadow batting on the pitch that we're about to play Pakistan on the following day. And that was me just trying to get myself in some kind of mental state to try and perform the next day. I had an awful night's sleep the night before Pakistan. I think I got to bed sleep about 4:35 in the morning. and those games are starting early in the morning over there. So I probably had 1 hour sleep at best. But then something clicked. We woke up, I drew the curtains in the hotel room, and it was a grey Jamaican morning, and there was drizzle, and it felt like I was back here I am in Sandymount, Dublin. It felt like a Dublin day, and we got to the ground and we saw the pitch, and the pitch, it was green. It had a lovely, lovely tinge to green, and that's when the pressure, you mentioned pressure, that's when Trent Johnson, our captain, he was under so much pressure. You got to win that toss. You win that toss, we can really put Pakistan under pressure, because we know how good a batting lineup they are. Mohammad Yusuf and all the likes of Yunus Khan and Inzi, of course, and Kamran Akbar. But we also know Pakistan. This is why we love Pakistan cricket. They are up and down. They can be fragile. So it was a good toss to win by the captain, and the bowlers did a great job. But I actually, in that game, we went off for rain. The back end of after the Pakistan innings, there was a little bit of a rain around, and I went to hit some balls out the back of the stand. And I don't know if you've ever been to Sabina Park, but there's no grass out the back of the stand. It's just a car park with rubble. And I hit some balls into a fence with the coach, little underarms, and nothing major. A little bit like my mum would have done here back when I was a child. And all the Pakistan fans were walking past laughing, as if I was, what kind of preparation is this to face the mighty Umar Gul, Mohammad Sami? Well, I tell you what.
1 hour of sleep and a few balls in the parking lot, and that's the recipe to scoring more than half the other team's total.
Yeah, but the thing is, when this is what I speak about, my competitive edge, my competitive juices. Once I got out in the middle, I'd forgotten about all my terrible form.
Niall Brien looking in really good touch. What a straight bat that is.
As soon as I took guard, there was 2,000 or 3,000 people. There was an atmosphere, and I knew I had to do it from a country. So I'd forgotten about my previous low scores. I'd forgotten about the tour to Kenya when I averaged about 7 in the series. That was all history, and that is something as a player you've got to leave the past in the past. And that day I got a couple out of the middle of the bat early, and I just loved it. That 2 hours I spent at the crease was probably the 2 happiest hours of my career. I loved every minute of it.
Yes, it's a run, 50 to Brien. Magnificent innings under pressure. How well he's played. Countered the swing and seam of Umar Gul and Sami with guts. Showed great temperament. In a pressure situation, he's got a 50.
Yeah, fantastically done.
So you would characterize that as your most memorable innings?
100%. Yeah, that was a huge innings for me. It made people around the world kind of stand up and take note and say, listen, this guy's a good keeper, a good batsman. I had some really good people in the commentary box, talking highly of me. And everywhere I went after that for the World Cup, everyone spoke highly about me and my wicket-keeping and batting. And also it helped Ireland. It set Ireland on a pathway, because now all of a sudden everyone knew who Irish cricket was. Everyone knew about Irish cricket. Everyone knew the O'Brien brothers. Everyone knew, Trent Johnson, etc., Boyd Rankin, Porterfield. And, Irish cricket hasn't looked back. But without that win in Pakistan, it would not have set the wheels in motion when we capitalised on that, obviously, with wonderful wins in the following years.
Absolutely. One of the great wins in the history of the World Cup. But mentioning another thing that you just mentioned, your wicket keeping as well. And if from 2006 to when you started to now, the role of a wicket keeping batsman has changed immensely, right? And there's been an explosion of talent in that particular position. So what do you think, what traits do you specifically look for in young wicket keeping batsmen? And when you look at tournaments like the IPL, being franchises, it's created an entirely new set of talent. And if you look at a lot of national teams, like India, for example, fields 2 wicketkeepers, England with Bairstow and Butler. Almost every single team now has like 2 or 3 people who can, go behind the stump. So who do you enjoy? Obviously talk a little bit about the skills and what made you so great behind the stumps. And also if you can mention a couple of wicketkeepers that you enjoyed watching over the course of your career, as well as now post-retirement.
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, to be a wicketkeeper, you've got to be pretty thick-skinned, because, you've got to make mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes can be very costly. So you have to be mentally strong to be able to deal with that. I think, the fundamentals are obviously, your fitness levels have to be good, etc. You have to have good hand-eye coordination. Ideally, not too tall, because it's a long way down. Although, Adam Gilchrist was a tall keeper, but I think fundamentally you've got to want the ball. So generally you'll find most wicket keepers are very outgoing people, because you have to lead the team. My job as a wicket keeper, first and foremost, for my captain and my coach, take your chances. That is your bread and butter. You have to take your chances. That is a non-negotiable. But actually, you're out there to do a job to unsettle the opposition. In a sporting way, you're out there to give your captain another set of eyes to help him in terms of plans, preparation, strategies against opponents. So that's something that's really, really important as a wicketkeeper. You need to be able to spot a weakness in the batsman's technique to try and expose that. Try and work with some plans. So I think those are some of the key factors. Being, my personality, as you'll know from chatting to me for 10 or 15 minutes, I'm not shy, so I'm very outgoing, and I loved being out in the battle. I loved standing up to the stumps, having a chirp in the batsman's ear, all friendly banter, but just trying to get one over the batsman. And being out there when you take a catch or a stumping, it's an amazing feeling when you get, especially like a leg side stumping or a diving catch. It can just give you such a rush. So I think that's what you need as a keeper: outgoing, energetic. Have a good eye for an opportunity against the opposition. I love wicketkeeper batsmen, but the wicketkeeper batsman role, as you mentioned, has changed. You have to score runs now, almost to the detriment of keeping to a certain extent. Some sides, they won't necessarily pick the best keeper, but they'll pick the best batsman. But it is changing a little bit. Look at Ben Foakes now playing. He's the best wicketkeeper in England. He is an absolute marvellous gloveman. I would say he's probably in the top 3 keepers in the world. He's a very good batsman. He got a century on his Test debut, Ben Foakes, but I think he's a wicketkeeper batsman. Most keepers around the world now, they're batsman wicketkeeper. Rishabh Pant, for example, what a batsman he is. Wicketkeeping, he's improved a lot. I think he's still got a long way to go before he's probably level as a wicketkeeper as with his batting and wicketkeeping. But he is a fantastic cricketer, and he's improved a lot. Adam Gilchrist changed the game, really. Kalu Withrana from Sri Lanka, we think of the 1996 World Cup, he changed the pinch hitter role himself in Sanachai Surya. So I remember watching little Kalu flicking the ball off his legs over square leg. So he changed, and then Gilchrist took it on. And Gilchrist for me was just the absolute legend of the batsman wicketkeeper. Ian Healy was probably my favourite. I loved Ian Healy as a keeper. And Jack Russell up to the stumps with that old floppy hat in patches, the moustache, just a brilliant gloveman. So I think there are some of the old keepers I like. Current keepers, yeah, there's some good ones out there. I do like Foakes, I must say. Who
else would you put in your top 3? You had Foakes as one, if just pure wicket keeping.
Yeah, of current, well, I'd have Ben Foakes. I think Rizwan from Pakistan is a brilliant gloveman. I think he's when he came to England last summer, he hardly missed the ball. He was brilliant, and he was standing up to Mohammad Abbas. I know Mohammad Abbas isn't a fast bowler, but on pitches that were doing a bit, he was standing up to the stumps. He plays it in the right way. Mohammad Rizwan, he always has a smile on his face. He's a good batsman too, but he's a good gloveman. Yeah, Ben Foakes. I really like BJ Watling. I know he's retired now, and he's had a fantastic career. I think he was an excellent gloveman. So they're probably 3 keepers I really like. Tim Payne, I think Tim Payne over the last 24 months, his keeping has probably deteriorated a little bit. He's missed a few chances. I go back to that series, a couple of series he's had recently. He put down some chances. But Tim Payne is someone who is a very good gloveman, not as good as a batsman not as destructive a batsman as a Rishabh Pant, etc. But I think in this we are very, very lucky to have some wonderful wicketkeeper batsmen, or batsman wicketkeeper, whichever which way you want to talk about it. Well, I would say definitely Rizwan, Ben Foakes, and I know BJ Watling is just retired, but I like him as a gloveman.
I'm glad you actually mentioned Tim Payne, because it segues into a little. You talked about the tactical advantage that a keeper gives the captain, right? Like you see things that maybe the captain might have missed naturally due to your vantage point in the game, and also in terms of how much really like the wicketkeeper can sort of ignite the entire team. A great catch or a great stumping can just bring in a lot of energy to the team. But one way you were famous to bring energy in was your chirping behind the stumps, and you were famously competitive and famously chirp behind the stumps. Tim Payne obviously is probably the only modern player who embodies that a little bit. But the current state of the gentleman's game, we find ourselves with obviously the India-Australia series, where a young Australian took his debuts, like went to the crease on his debut, and the Indian wicketkeeper like wishes him luck. to the point where he's confused. Is he trying to like 3D chess banter me, or is he just a nice guy? It turns out like they went on to become friends and all of that. And clearly the state of sledging in the gentleman's game is in a slightly different place than when you were, behind the stumps. And if you have any anecdotes or any funny stories to share about your time, and if you sort of got under anyone's skin or anything that you were able to do to give your team an advantage.
Yeah, certainly. Well, listen, that, as I said, that was it was part of my DNA, really. It was part of my job, part of my role. It doesn't always work. Let me tell you, sledging doesn't always work, because sometimes it backfires. Brian Lara, we played against Ireland against the West Indies in a tour match in 2004 in Belfast, and I'm pretty sure Brien got an outside edge, and I called it, and the umpire gave him not out. And my captain at the time, Jason Mullins, said to me, "Niall, did he nick it?" And I said, within earshot of the great Brian Lara, I said, "He didn't nick it, he middled it." Brien, he took umbrage and he wasn't very happy. And as I said, it doesn't always work out, because he went on to get 100, Brian Lara, and almost rub it in my face. And then when it came my turn to bat, I got out cut behind for 2. So, and he just asked me, "Did you not nick yours either?" So that was quite a nice story. Yeah, I got under the skin of opposition a lot. Shane Warne once called me a peanut. So I still, to this day, I don't know what he meant by calling me a peanut, but when I saw him at the 2019 World Cup on the outfield at the Oval, we had a catch up, and Rob Key, my old Kent captain, said to him, "Warne, do you remember calling Niall a peanut?" He goes, "I do. How are you, peanut?" Warne said to me. So it's good. It's good nature. Myself and Kevin Peterson have had a few run-ins and on-field battles, but I lost that one as well, because the last time he played, he got 355 against me in the last game for Surrey. So sometimes you got to choose your people you're sledging or not sledging, and sometimes I got that wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Viv Richards was actually famous where the opposition captains used to ban him. Like, nobody was allowed to sledge him, because that's exactly what would happen. Is, like you said, Peterson and Lara, I guess the greats, you don't really step on their toes, because then you unlock another level of performance from them. But great. So we just have, since we're running a little bit short on time, Niall, we just thought we'd have one question for you from the audience.
Sure.
So essentially, someone was curious about how, you talked about the emotions, how, you've sort of you go up and down with your emotions. How has that like affected different stages of your life? And is that something that you feel like you've gotten better with over age, or is that something that you still feel like needs to be addressed in terms of how you sort of approach life?
Well, I definitely got better as my career went on. It's one of those, the more success you have and the more experience you have, not just in cricket but in life, the more you have to lean back on or fall back on. So I think definitely it's something I got better at. It's a gradual thing. I'm fairly hot-tempered at times. As I said, I'm quite emotive. I play golf now, so I basically want to be the best golfer in the world now. So there's a progression that from being not very good to trying to be the best. But I just kind of want to fast track that or fast forward. So I think for anyone who is struggling with that, the important thing I think is when you have a good day. Let's talk about cricket, and if the viewer is a male or female, I'm not sure, but if they're a batsman, for example, or batter, for example, remember the good days. Jot what went well. If you got 100 or 50, why did you get it? How was your morning? How did you spend your morning? Did you have a good night's sleep? These are all things you can kind of draw back on for experience. And when you do go through a bit of a rough patch, it's almost a self-check. Okay, when I was playing well 6 months ago, when I was having some good success, this is what I was doing. I was sleeping, I was eating, I was doing this well, I was getting plenty of rest, I was actually netting more or less. So there's all these kind of checkpoints. So I think the older you get, the more experience you get, good and bad. I think you can't be a good cricketer or a good sportsman without bad experience as well. And sometimes actually learning from the tough times are as important as learning from the good times.
Absolutely. And I think that's a great note for us to end this session on. And we just want to thank you from behalf of ITW, Niall, for taking so much time out of your schedule. We'll send you back to the family now, and hopefully see you on the PGA Tour sometime soon.
I don't think that's going to happen, but thank you.
I won't hold my breath for that. But it's so nice having you. Take care, Niall, and we'll hope to chat sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to this podcast. We are available on all leading platforms including Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon, and Pocket Cast. Please share it with others and leave us a rating and a review. This podcast was written and presented by me, Ashwin Vijay Kumar. Sound mixing and editing for this episode was done by Dheeraj P. Rao. The executive producer of the ITW podcast is Tariq Laskar. Our research team includes Devanshu Bhatt, Vaisak Raj, Vidushi Bandari, Riya Nandi, and Kishan Mundra. Visit us at itwglobal.com.
ITW Soundworx.